The sun is barely up over the African savanna, and already something has died. You can tell before you even see the carcass. The vultures give it away first, circling in tight, lazy spirals against the pale morning sky. Then the sound reaches you. A low, rolling chorus of whoops and cackles that carries across the open grassland, like something between laughter and a warning, and then you see them, spotted hyenas, moving in from every direction with that unmistakable rocking gait, heads low, shoulders rolling, eyes locked onto the prize. If you have never watched a spotted hyena feed, you have no real understanding of what extreme hunger looks like when evolution decides to solve it once and for all. And if you want to understand some of the most extraordinary, most misunderstood, and most ruthlessly intelligent animals alive on Earth today, stay with this. Because what a single spotted hyena can do to 14 kilograms of meat in one sitting, and what the rest of the clan does afterward, will change the way you think about these animals completely. Before we go any further, if you find yourself genuinely gripped by stories like this, the kind that go beyond the surface and into the real mechanics of survival, go ahead and subscribe now. There is a great deal more where this comes from. Now, back to that carcass. The spotted hyena, Crocuta crocuta, is found across sub-Saharan Africa and in small isolated populations in a few other regions. It is the most common large carnivore on the continent. Not the lion, not the leopard, the hyena. There are somewhere between 27,000 and 47,000 of them alive today, living in groups called clans that can number anywhere from a handful of individuals to over 80 animals in areas with rich prey populations like the Serengeti or the Masai Mara. And for most of human history, we have been getting them spectacularly wrong. The hyena has been cast as a coward, a scavenger, a skulking opportunist that lives on the leftover kills of nobler predators. Ancient Egyptians kept them as livestock and fattened them for the table, but even they had an uneasy relationship with the animal. In medieval European bestiaries, the hyena was a symbol of treachery and excess. In many African cultures, the hyena is associated with witchcraft, with the night, with death itself. The spotted hyena's call, that extraordinary undulating whoop, has been described as the laugh of something fundamentally unhinged. None of that is wrong exactly. The hyena does laugh. It does operate in the dark. It is deeply connected to death. But here is the thing. Nearly all of that is a feature, not a flaw. Every single one of those traits is a precise, elegant, evolved solution to the problem of surviving in one of the most competitive ecological environments on the planet. And the ability to consume 14 kilograms of meat in a single sitting is perhaps the most elegant solution of all. Let's start with the body, because the spotted hyena's body is essentially a machine designed around one singular purpose: processing biomass faster and more completely than any other large land carnivore. Begin with the skull. A hyena's skull is disproportionately large even for an animal of its size, and the jaw muscles that anchor to that skull are extraordinary. The masseter and temporal muscles that control jaw closure are among the most powerful, relative to body size, of any terrestrial predator. The bite force of a spotted hyena has been measured at around 1,100 newtons. To put that in perspective, a lion produces roughly 650 newtons. A German Shepherd, one of the most powerful domestic dogs, produces around 230. A hyena bites with roughly 50% more force than a lion, and nearly 5 times more force than a large domestic dog. That bite force is not there to kill prey. Hyenas kill with a different mechanism entirely, which we will come to. The bite force exists entirely for one purpose: to crack bone. The hyena's dentition is specialized in a way that sets it apart from virtually every other predator its size. The carnassial teeth, the blade-like shearing teeth found in all carnivores, are present. But in the hyena, the premolars are massively enlarged and thickened into crushing tools. These are sometimes called bone-cracking premolars, and the name is entirely appropriate. A spotted hyena can crack the femur of a Cape buffalo. It can process bones that lions and leopards and wild dogs simply leave behind because they lack the equipment to do anything with them. And this matters enormously when you are trying to understand how one animal eats 14 kilograms of food in one sitting. Because the hyena is not just eating muscle tissue, it is eating bone, it is eating cartilage, it is eating hide. It is eating the parts of the carcass that other predators either cannot process or simply ignore. When a hyena is done with a carcass, there is genuinely very little left. Tourists who come across a site where a hyena clan has fed overnight are often puzzled by the absence of remains. There are no bones. There is no hide. There may be a stain on the ground, some hair, perhaps a hoof. That is all. The digestive system that handles this extraordinary input is equally remarkable. The spotted hyena has a stomach acid pH of approximately 1.7, comparable to that of vultures, and significantly more acidic than most mammalian carnivores. This extreme acidity allows it to break down bone matrix, to destroy pathogens that would be lethal to most other animals, and to extract nutritional value from material that is essentially indigestible to anything else. Hyenas regularly consume anthrax-infected carcasses without apparent ill effect. They eat meat in advanced stages of decomposition. They crack open bones and consume the marrow and even the bone mineral itself. The consequence of all this is the famous white feces of the spotted hyena. Hyena droppings are white because they are almost entirely composed of calcium phosphate, the mineral that remains after the organic components of bone have been digested and absorbed. This is actually one of the ways field researchers identify hyena activity in an area without needing to see the animals directly. Those white chalky deposits are a signature. They are proof that something ate here and left almost nothing behind. Now let's talk about rate. Because the sheer speed at which a spotted hyena can consume food is one of the most startling things to witness in the natural world. 14 kilograms is the figure most often cited in the literature, and it represents roughly a third of the average adult hyena's body weight. The average spotted hyena weighs between 40 and 86 kilograms, with females being significantly larger than males, an unusual reversal of the sexual dimorphism seen in most mammalian carnivores. So a 60-kilogram female consuming 14 kilograms of food in one sitting is eating something like 23% of her own body weight in a single meal. For a human of average weight, the equivalent would be consuming roughly 17 kilograms of food in one go. The speed at which this happens is driven by competition. In a clan feeding situation, every second of delay is a kilogram lost to the animal beside you. Hyenas at a carcass are not elegant. They are not methodical in any way that looks like calm. They are frantic and furious and extraordinarily focused, and they are consuming food at a rate that is almost too fast to follow. Pieces of meat and bone disappear with a speed that seems physically impossible. The cracking of major long bones sounds like gunshots in the early morning air. A hyena does not eat by tearing small pieces and chewing them carefully. It takes large sections, compresses them with those massive premolars, and swallows. It is processing the carcass rather than tasting it. Everything about the feeding behavior is optimized for intake rate rather than digestive preparation, because the digestive system downstream is powerful enough to handle what arrives. But here is where the story becomes genuinely complicated. Because that 14-kilogram meal does not happen in a vacuum. It happens inside a social structure of almost bewildering complexity. And what comes after that meal, what the clan does next, is where the true nature of this animal reveals itself. Spotted hyenas live in what is called a fission-fusion society. This is the same social structure observed in chimpanzees, elephants, dolphins, and humans. It is one of the most cognitively demanding social arrangements in the animal kingdom because it requires every individual to maintain a detailed mental map of the relationships, hierarchies, and shifting alliances within a group that they may rarely see all at once. A hyena clan does not move around as a single unit. Individuals and small subgroups go out and come back, merge and separate, with a fluidity that requires constant social updating. Who is dominant today? Who has formed a new alliance? Who has been absent and therefore lost social standing? Who is feeding where? All of this information must be tracked, processed, and acted upon. The clan is matriarchal. This is not a loose tendency or a general pattern. Female dominance is absolute and structurally enforced. The lowest-ranking adult female in a hyena clan outranks the highest-ranking adult male, every male, always, and her cubs, regardless of their own age or size, inherit her social position and outrank all adult males from birth. A cub can displace a fully grown adult male from a food source simply by virtue of who its mother is. This matriarchal structure is thought to be connected to the extraordinary endocrine biology of female spotted hyenas. Females have circulating androgen levels that are, at certain life stages, higher than those of males. They are masculinized to a degree seen in no other mammal. The external genitalia of females are structured in a way that makes it genuinely difficult to determine sex by visual inspection alone, which confounded researchers for decades and contributed to a great deal of folklore about hyenas being hermaphrodites. They are not, but the degree of androgenization they display is real and biologically significant. The consequences of this biology for social structure are profound. Female hyenas are larger, more aggressive, and more dominant than males. They are also the primary architects of clan social organization. They choose feeding sites, they defend territories, they determine which males have access to mating opportunities and which do not. Males in a spotted hyena clan occupy a genuinely precarious social position. They arrive as immigrants from other clans, they start at the bottom of the hierarchy, and they spend their entire adult lives in a state of social subordination to every female in the group. So what does all of this mean for that 14-kilogram meal? It means that the meal itself is not a random event. It is an expression of rank. The dominant female, the matriarch, and her immediate family eat first. They eat the best parts. They eat the most. Lower-ranking individuals wait at the periphery, darting in when an opportunity presents itself, retreating when a higher-ranking animal approaches. Males, particularly immigrant males with no established social connections, often eat last and eat least. In a large clan feeding on a single large carcass, like a zebra or a wildebeest, the noise and chaos can be extraordinary. But beneath that chaos is a perfectly legible social order. Watch long enough and you will see it. The movements of individuals around the carcass are not random. They are choreographed by rank, by alliance, by kinship. The dominant female's cubs have privileged access. She will actively guard a food source against adult animals 3 or 4 times their size to ensure they are fed. This is not sentimentality. This is strategic investment. Her cubs are her genetic legacy. Their survival and their social success are the measure of her own evolutionary fitness. Feeding them is the most important thing she does. Now, here is where something remarkable happens, something that most accounts of hyena feeding leave out entirely. After the initial frenzy, after the carcass has been substantially reduced, the clan does not simply disperse. What happens next is a social event of considerable sophistication. Hyenas communicate through an elaborate repertoire of vocalizations, postures, and scent signals. The whoop, that haunting ascending call that carries for kilometers across open savanna, is a contact call. It says, "I am here. Where are you?" It is used to bring clan members together. After a major feeding event, whooping often increases, not because the animals are celebrating in any human sense, but because the feeding event has redistributed individuals, and the clan needs to reconsolidate its social network. Clan members engage in a greeting ceremony that is one of the most complex ritualized social interactions seen in any carnivore. 2 hyenas approaching each other will often pause, circle cautiously, and then perform a mutual sniffing and licking of the urogenital region. This is not simply a dominance display, though dominance is expressed within it. It is a complex social exchange that conveys identity, reproductive status, stress levels, and recent social history. The information exchanged in a greeting ceremony is dense and multi-layered. This greeting ceremony intensifies after major social events like feeding, territorial encounters, or reunions after separation. The clan is, in a sense, reweaving its social fabric. Every greeting reestablishes where every individual stands relative to every other individual. In a society where your social rank determines how much you eat and therefore whether your cubs survive, this constant social updating is not optional, it is survival. And then there is the den. Hyena clans maintain a communal den site, and the den is the social heart of the clan. It is where cubs are raised, where individuals return to rest, and where the most complex social interactions occur. Den sites are often old aardvark burrows that hyenas have widened and modified, or natural rock shelters, or dense thickets. They are returned to repeatedly and can be used for months or even years before the clan moves on. After a major feeding event, the return to the den is one of the most socially significant moments in hyena clan life. Cubs that have been left at the den while adults went to feed are intensely interested in the returning adults. Mothers have a direct biological reason to return to the den to nurse. Spotted hyenas nurse their cubs for a remarkably long period relative to other carnivores, often up to 14 to 18 months, and the milk itself is extraordinarily nutritious, among the richest in fat and protein of any carnivore. The mother who has just consumed 14 kilograms of food is now providing that stored energy to her cubs in a highly concentrated form. But the interaction at the den is not just between mothers and their own cubs. It involves the whole social network. Cubs interact with all adults. They test relationships, push boundaries, Practice the dominance behaviors they will need for survival. A cub that will eventually be a dominant female is already beginning to express that dominance in its earliest months of life. The social hierarchy is learned, reinforced, and tested from the very beginning. And here is something about those cubs that most people never know. Spotted hyena cubs are born with their eyes open and their teeth already erupted. They are, from their very first moments of life, capable of aggression. Litters are typically 1 or 2 cubs, and in cases where 2 cubs are born, they begin competing immediately. In some cases, within hours of birth, before they have even left the natal burrow. Same-sex litters have the highest levels of sibling aggression, and in some cases, this aggression results in the death of one cub. This is not accidental, it is evolved. In an environment where resources are unpredictable and feeding is intermittent, raising one healthy cub to independence may be a better evolutionary strategy than dividing resources between 2 and risking both. The den, then, is not simply a safe place. It is a crucible of competition, of social learning, of the formation of relationships and rivalries that will define these animals' lives for years or decades to come. A spotted hyena in good conditions can live for 25 years or more. This is a long life for a carnivore of this size, and it means that hyenas accumulate social histories of genuine depth and complexity. An old matriarch has known every member of her clan for years. She has watched alliances form and dissolve. She has seen which females are dangerous rivals and which can be trusted as allies. She has a social memory that would be extraordinary in any animal and is genuinely remarkable in one so consistently underestimated. Research conducted over decades in sites like the Masai Mara and the Ngorongoro crater has revealed that spotted hyenas have cognitive abilities that parallel or exceed those of primates in several domains. They perform as well as chimpanzees in certain problem-solving tasks, particularly those that involve social cooperation. They can understand social relationships between third parties, meaning they can track not just their own relationships with other clan members, but the relationships of those others with each other. This is a cognitively demanding ability. Humans have it, great apes have it, dolphins have it, and hyenas have it. The social complexity of the clan is not incidental to the hyena's ecological success. It is central to it. A hyena clan that functions well is a formidable competitive force. They cooperate to bring down prey that a single individual could never tackle. They cooperate to defend carcasses from lions, sometimes driving lions off kills that those lions work to secure. They cooperate to defend territory against rival clans with a ferocity and coordination that is genuinely impressive to watch. But let us come back to hunting, because the story of the hyena, as primarily a scavenger, is one of the most persistent and damaging pieces of misinformation in popular natural history. The spotted hyena is, in most of its range and in most ecological conditions, primarily a hunter. The definitive study of this question was conducted by Hans Kruk in the Serengeti and Ngorongoro crater in the 1960s and 70s, and his findings were so counter to the existing narrative that they were initially met with considerable resistance. Kruk found that in the Ngorongoro crater, hyenas killed more than they scavenged. He found that lions in the crater were more likely to steal hyena kills than the reverse. The image of the hyena as a sneaking thief living on lion leftovers was, in many contexts, precisely backwards. Lions were stealing from hyenas. The mechanism by which hyenas hunt is worth understanding in detail, because it is very different from the ambush strategies used by felids, and it tells you a great deal about the kind of intelligence these animals have. Hyenas hunt in groups. The group coordinates around a target in a way that is clearly strategic, rather than simply opportunistic. Pursuit distances are often very long, sometimes several kilometers, at sustained speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour. Hyenas have a cardiovascular system that makes them exceptional endurance runners. Their hearts are proportionally larger than those of most comparable predators. Their limbs, though they appear ungainly in the rocking canter that characterizes their movement, are highly efficient at distance running. They are the marathon runners of the African Predator Guild. When hunting wildebeest, the most important prey species in many parts of their range, a hyena group will typically select a target individual from a herd, often one that shows some sign of compromised fitness, a slight limp, a different movement pattern, something that registers in the hyena's assessment even if it is invisible to human observers. The target is then pursued as a group, with individuals taking turns at the front of the chase to distribute the energetic cost. The target is brought down not by a single killing bite to the throat in the manner of a lion or leopard, but by multiple bites to the hindquarters and flanks, tearing open the abdominal cavity, with death resulting from blood loss and shock. This is not pretty. It is extremely efficient, and it frequently happens at a speed that means the wildebeest is being consumed before it has entirely stopped moving. When the hunt succeeds and the prey goes down, the transition from cooperative hunting to competitive feeding is nearly instantaneous. The same animals that were working together in perfect coordination 30 seconds ago are now competing with each other for access to the best feeding positions. This transition, from cooperation to competition and back again, depending on context, is another marker of cognitive sophistication. Understanding when to cooperate and when to compete, and switching between those modes accurately, requires a social intelligence that is anything but simple. But here is the deeper complexity. Even in the chaos of competitive feeding, the fundamental social order of the clan is maintained. High-ranking females feed in the best positions. Their cubs are protected. Males yield to females. And through all of it, the clan's social structure absorbs the pressures of scarcity and abundance and emerges intact. Now let us think about what happens when the feeding is over, not just at one carcass on one morning, but across the broader pattern of hyena life. Intermittent feeding is the norm for spotted hyenas across most of their range. The savanna is not a consistent buffet. Prey migrations shift seasonally. Droughts compress prey populations. Rainfall drives dispersal. There are periods of genuine abundance, like the wildebeest calving season, when food is so plentiful that even relatively low-ranking hyenas can eat their fill every day. And there are lean periods when finding a meal is a real challenge, and the social competition for access to food intensifies dramatically. The hyena's physiology is adapted for both ends of this spectrum. The capacity to consume and store 14 kilograms of food in one sitting is an adaptation for feast conditions. During a period of prey abundance, a hyena that can gorge maximally is banking energy against the lean times to come. The stored fat and the protein synthesized from that enormous meal will sustain the animal through days or weeks of reduced feeding. The gut itself is adapted for rapid transit during high intake periods. Food moves through the digestive system quickly during gorging, allowing the animal to consume more before the physical limits of stomach volume are reached. This is the opposite of what happens in ruminants, which slow their digestive process to extract maximum nutrition from plant material. The hyena is running its system on throughput mode, extracting the most energy from the highest quality food as fast as possible. There is also a remarkable capacity for fluid conservation. In dry conditions, spotted hyenas can go for several days without drinking, obtaining sufficient moisture from the prey they eat. In areas far from permanent water, like parts of the Kalahari, this is a critical adaptation. Lions and other large predators in the same areas must maintain proximity to water sources. Hyenas have more freedom of movement. But returning to that moment after the feast, after the carcass has been reduced to calcium white fragments, after the whooping and the greeting ceremonies and the return to the den, what does the clan face? It faces the same challenge it always faces. Tomorrow. The territory must be patrolled. Rival clans must be assessed, and where necessary, confronted. The boundaries are maintained by scent marking, a process of extraordinary chemical complexity. Hyenas have a specialized pouch near the base of the tail from which they deposit a secretion onto grass stems. This secretion contains a wealth of chemical information, encoded by bacteria living within the pouch. Different bacterial communities produce different scent profiles. The composition of the secretion changes with reproductive status, social rank, stress levels, and individual identity. A passing hyena reading a scent mark is reading something very close to a full social profile of the individual that left it. Territorial confrontations between clans are among the most intense social events in spotted hyena life. They involve the whole clan, or as many members as can be mobilized, moving together toward the boundary in a coordinated display of collective intimidation. The vocalizations in these situations are extraordinary, a full acoustic barrage that can be heard for kilometers. Whoops, giggles, yells, growls, the full repertoire deployed simultaneously. The effect on the human observer is visceral. Something very old in the human nervous system responds to the sound of a hyena clan in full territorial display. These confrontations are usually resolved by numbers. The larger clan wins, almost always. This is another reason why clan cohesion, maintained by those complex social bonds, those greeting ceremonies and vocal networks and alliances built over years, is not merely a behavioral curiosity. It is a matter of survival. A well-integrated, socially cohesive clan is a more effective territorial unit. It holds better ground. It defends better kills. Its cubs survive at higher rates. The quality of the social network is the difference between thriving and merely existing. Research has shown that the size of a hyena's social network and the strength of its social bonds predict survival and reproductive success better than almost any other measurable variable. An individual with strong social connections feeds better, lives longer, and has more surviving offspring. This is not unique to hyenas. It has been shown in a range of social mammals, including primates and humans. But in hyenas, the relationship between social bond quality and survival is stark enough to be measured clearly in field data. Which means that every greeting ceremony, every vocal exchange, every careful negotiation of a feeding hierarchy is doing something more than maintaining order. It is building and reinforcing a network that is, quite literally, a matter of life and death. Now let us spend some time with the landscape these animals inhabit, because the ecosystem shapes the hyena as profoundly as the hyena shapes the ecosystem. The African savanna is a system of extraordinary complexity and dynamism. The grass, the trees, the grazers, the predators, the scavengers, the decomposers are all connected in webs of dependence so intricate that pulling on any single thread changes everything else. In this system, the spotted hyena is not an optional extra. It is a load-bearing element. The hyena's role in nutrient cycling is immense. By consuming bones, it removes mineral calcium from carcasses that would otherwise persist on the landscape for months or years. It accelerates the return of that calcium and phosphorus to the soil through its distinctive white feces. In heavily grazed ecosystems where calcium can be limiting, this is a genuine ecological service. The hyena's behavior as both predator and scavenger means that it performs two different but complementary roles in the ecosystem. As a predator, it removes sick, injured, and compromised individuals from prey populations, reducing disease transmission and maintaining the health and fitness of those populations. As a scavenger, it cleans up carcasses that would otherwise become disease reservoirs. The anthrax-resistant digestive system means that hyenas can process anthrax-infected carcasses without spreading the disease, effectively acting as a biological containment system. In places where hyenas have been eliminated, these functions are lost. Carcasses accumulate. Disease spreads more readily through prey populations. Other scavengers, like vultures, which have their own critical ecosystem roles, are deprived of a competitor that normally helps them locate and access food resources. The landscape is measurably poorer, and yet hyenas are killed in enormous numbers across their range. They are killed by farmers protecting livestock. They are killed in snares set for other animals. They are poisoned at carcasses by ranchers who regard them as pests. They are killed in road collisions. In some areas, they are killed for body parts used in traditional medicine. In a very few places, they are still killed for food. The population of spotted hyenas is classified as least concern by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, which might suggest there is nothing to worry about. But least concern is a classification that obscures a great deal of heterogeneity. In some areas, particularly outside protected reserves, hyena populations have declined sharply. In West Africa, they are now rare across much of their former range. The patchwork of small, isolated populations that results from habitat fragmentation is vulnerable in ways that large, connected populations are not. And the loss of hyenas from an ecosystem does not go unnoticed by the other inhabitants. Lions, in areas without hyenas, show behavioral changes. The competitive pressure that hyenas normally exert forces lions to develop certain behaviors around food, around den site selection, around range use. Remove that pressure and the lions relax in ways that can affect their own ecology. The African wild dog, one of the rarest large carnivores on the continent, has a complex and largely antagonistic relationship with hyenas. Wild dogs lose a significant proportion of their kills to hyena kleptoparasitism, which drives them to range widely and feed fast. Hyenas shape wild dog behavior as profoundly as any other factor in their environment. Remove the hyena, and the ecosystem reshuffles. Some of those reshufflings are predictable. Many are not. The trophic cascade set in motion by the removal of a keystone species like the spotted hyena touches every level of the system, from the grassroots to the vultures circling overhead. There is a further dimension to this story that deserves attention. The relationship between spotted hyenas and humans is ancient, complicated, and far stranger than most people know. In the late Pleistocene, roughly between 2 million and 10,000 years ago, spotted hyenas were among the most widespread large carnivores on Earth. Their range extended from southern Africa to northern Europe, from the British Isles to what is now China. Cave hyenas, as they are sometimes called, were in many areas contemporaneous with early modern humans, and with Neanderthals. They competed with these hominins for food, for shelter, for carcasses. Fossil evidence from European cave sites shows clear indications of human-hyena competition, gnawed bones at sites where both species left marks, denning evidence of hyenas in caves that were also periodically used by humans. This is not a simple story of humans and hyenas side by side. They were competing directly for the same resources. And in some cases, the hyenas were winning. There is fossil evidence of hyenas preying on hominins. There are sites in Africa where concentrations of hominin fossils show evidence of hyena gnawing. The relationship was, in its most ancient form, one of genuine predator-prey tension, as much as competitor rivalry. And something of that ancient tension persists. The visceral human response to hyenas, the discomfort that many people feel at the sound of them, the unease they provoke even in people who have never seen one, may have roots older than recorded history. It may be a trace of something that was genuinely adaptive long ago. We are afraid of hyenas because our ancestors had very good reasons to be afraid of hyenas. But fear and fascination are close cousins, and the hyena has attracted both in equal measure. In the Ethiopian city of Harar, there is a tradition of feeding wild hyenas by hand that dates back several centuries and has become one of the more extraordinary human-wildlife interactions anywhere in the world. Every night, men known as hyena men go to specific feeding sites on the outskirts of the city and call the local hyenas in with scraps of meat. The hyenas, known individually by name, come close enough to take food from an outstretched hand or from a stick held in the mouth. The relationship is not tame in any sense. These are completely wild animals, but they are habituated to specific individuals through a tradition of trust maintained over generations. The current hyena men describe inheriting the relationship from their fathers and grandfathers. The hyenas that come tonight are the descendants of the hyenas that came in their grandfather's time. The origin of the tradition is explained in different ways. Some accounts connect it to historical periods when hyenas helped control waste within the city and were deliberately encouraged. Some connect it to a spiritual protection narrative, the idea that maintaining good relations with the hyenas prevents attacks on the city's inhabitants and livestock. Whatever its origin, it represents one of the very few examples of a sustained, deliberate, multi-generational relationship of coexistence between humans and a large, fully wild carnivore. There is something deeply moving about it, and something that challenges almost everything we think we know about hyenas. The animals that come to Harar's feeding sites at night are not the cowardly skulkers of the popular imagination. They are cautious, intelligent, curious, and in their own way dignified. They negotiate the terms of the encounter. They maintain their own social hierarchies even at the feeding site. The dominant animals feed first. Younger, lower-ranking animals wait. The social structure of the wild clan is intact, even in this extraordinary human-adjacent context. Let us come back one more time to that single animal, that spotted hyena, with 14 kilograms of meat inside it, moving back across the grassland in the early morning light. Everything about this animal is the product of millions of years of precisely calibrated evolutionary pressure. The skull and the jaws and the teeth that allow it to consume what other predators leave behind. The gut that can handle bone and rot and anthrax without flinching. The social brain that tracks dozens of individual relationships simultaneously and deploys that knowledge in real time. The vocal system that encodes information in calls that carry for kilometers across open ground. The reproductive biology that produces cubs armed and ready for conflict from their very first day. This animal has been shaped by competition of every kind. Competition with lions and leopards and wild dogs for prey and for carcasses. Competition within the clan for rank and access and food. Competition between clans for territory. Competition with the landscape itself, its droughts and its floods and its seasonal migrations and its infectious diseases. Every system has been optimized by that competition. Nothing is wasted. The ability to eat 14 kilograms in one sitting is not excess or gluttony. It is precision. It is the body doing exactly what it was designed to do, in an environment where the next meal is never guaranteed, and the ability to bank resources against an uncertain future is the difference between a line of descent that continues and one that ends. The 14 kilograms disappear into that body and are converted, with extraordinary efficiency, into energy and tissue and milk and social currency. The calcium goes into those white feces and returns to the soil. The protein rebuilds muscle and nourishes cubs. The fat reserves sustain the animal through the days when there is nothing to eat at all. And then the clan reassembles at the den. The greeting ceremonies are performed. The social bonds are reconfirmed and updated. The cubs jostle for position. The matriarch settles into rest with the ease of an animal that has no need to apologize for what she is. She has fed. Her clan has fed. The territory is intact. The social structure is intact. Tomorrow, the patrol routes will be walked again. The scent marks will be refreshed. The horizon will be watched for the movement of prey, for the gathering of vultures, for any sign that the landscape is offering something that can be taken. The clan will move and split and reform, maintain and negotiate its invisible architecture of rank and alliance and obligation. And somewhere out on that vast sunlit grassland, a wildebeest is moving, with a slight irregularity that it probably does not know about yet, a barely perceptible hitch in its stride that no lion has noticed and no wild dog has read. But somewhere, dark eyes and a powerful skull have already registered it. The assessment is already being made. The calculation is already running. This is how the spotted hyena has survived everything the Pleistocene and the Holocene have thrown at it. This is why, when so many of the great animals of the ancient world are gone, the hyena endures, not despite its nature, but entirely because of it. Every part of it is correct. Every part of it works, right down to the last crack of bone in the gray African dawn.